least once a year I go on a binge and watch all of the Star Wars movies. Well, most of them anyways. But this year I decided to switch things up a bit, and instead of watching, I'm going to be completing 4 of the best Star Wars games there is. And so I went through a list of all the Star Wars games with platinums and picked out 4 that are some of the absolute best, from amazing stories and intense gameplay to just pure fun and nostalgia. And to start off the video, let's jump into the best multiplayer game, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now the first task in this game is to complete the campaign, which is actually really cool considering it takes place after the 6th movie, but right away we meet our main character, Iden Versio, and it seems she's held captive by the rebels. And so our first job is to free her by controlling her droid to zap our way through all of the enemies. But then once I freed her, I would just have to sneak my way through the ship to escape, and I definitely did not die in the very first level. Although I was able to redeem myself right after and get my first trophy here by zapping 3 enemies at once. Yes, I got it, Dark Forces. Then I just had to shoot my way through a few more enemies to hit the escape pod and finish the first level. Oh, and there isn't actually an escape pod here. She just launches straight into space for one of the craziest escapes ever. But for mission 2, we're off to Endor to stop the rebels and save the Death Star. But it turns out we're too late as it blows up right in front of us. Go Lando. But now we would have to escape, and right away while fighting through it was time for my next trophy, in which I just had to eliminate 5 enemies at once with my grenade launcher. And after the rest were taken care of, we hopped in a TIE fighter to go up and check out the debris field that was left behind. This is also basically a tutorial on flying with a couple loop-de-loops that may have screwed me at one point. But we also ended up getting into some dogfights after, and upon completing that, we finished the mission and get our next trophy. But once we get back to the destroyer, we asked the exact question I was wondering too.
So what happens now?
And well, the answer comes straight from the Emperor himself.
Operation Cinder is to begin at once.
We also found out that this guy is her father, but we end up getting sent to Fondor to protect a Star Destroyer, which of course gets attacked right after we arrive. Although like most of them, this mission is super quick. I just had to shoot my way through and make it to the rebel ship so I could go and take out the ion coil. And in turn, that takes down the whole ship, and then as soon as we fly out of there, mission over. The Dauntless. Now for the next task, we're headed off to Pilio, but this is where the campaign gets really cool, because not only do we play as Iden the whole time, but we also have plenty of other characters involved, such as our first one here, Luke, and we just get to saber our way through all of the stormtroopers with ease. But on our path doing so, we find one of Iden's pals here by the name of Del, and once we free him from certain death, we give him a whole new perspective.
Why'd you help me? Because you asked.
But from there, we just had to get to the exit for our next trophy and to head into the next mission. And this next mission takes place on Vardos, and it's kinda messed up because the Empire is taking out all of its own people. But our job here is to make our way through this amazing looking area to find someone by the name of Gleb. But right here is when we also see Iden realize that they're the ones in the wrong, as she shoots her own squad mate to protect the civilians. And so from there, we're now on our own and have to make our way off of this planet. But before that, it was time to get a trophy for sneaking up on a scout trooper to get a takedown. Master of Deception. I also got to control an AT-AT for part of this mission, which was absolutely awesome getting to blow everything up. But once I was able to get through the overwhelming amount of stormtroopers here, we hopped into our ship to get out of Dodge. And now with nowhere else to go, Iden calls up the rebels and turns herself in. Which then brings us to meet this guy.
Hello.
And he gives us the task of saving Naboo, which was literally just a couple minutes of flying around shooting out some Star Destroyers, and then I'd get this trophy. Outcast, holy crap, that was a quick mission. Although it's not just space in trouble, as the city is under siege as well, bringing us down to hop into a squad with Leia, where we actually just get to play as her. But I feel most of these missions are basically just tutorials on using the characters, as all we really had to do was fight our way through some stormtroopers to make it to the palace, and that was mission complete already. Royalty. Then we EMP everything to save the city and join our new allies.
Welcome to the New Republic.
But with that, we're off to Takodana to meet another character we all love, Han Solo. But of course, we get ambushed and have to fight our way out of there and hop into the Millennium Falcon for a really cool battle in which I have to take out a light cruiser, which I apparently suck at as I flew right into it. But once I did take it down, we finished that level up and get this, General Distress. But now we're off to Bespin because Iden says she wants to capture her father. And for the first part here, we just slipped through with our stormtrooper armor on. But then we watch her father father take off in his destroyer and have to fight for our life to get out of there, which was pretty damn hectic, especially considering I had to fight an ATST. But eventually we find this little cloud car to take off in, and well damn, this thing has a punch. I mean, we were able to blow up a whole station with it to end the mission here. Under covered skies. So now we're going to Solist to track her father down in this weapons depot. And here we actually get to play as Lando, which was kind of nice since his thermal vision made this whole area a piece of cake to run through. But all we really had to do was flood the whole factory with lava and then skedaddle our way out of there in an ATST. Cash grab. But that brings us to the Battle of Jakku, and I actually got a trophy right off the bat here for destroying 8 starfighters in this first section. But for part 2, we have to fly over to a couple different downed destroyers to plant some explosives, and at one point we even had to hold an AT-AT off with guns, so that was fun. But once we had all the control systems and the downed destroyers blown up, we fly out of there and we get this. There we go. 2 missions left. But right then, this happens.
Your father. He's found us.
And well, Aiden just kind of dive bombs right up in there like she's in or something. And after fighting our way through these really intense jetpack troopers and making our way inside, we come across the man we've been looking for. And in a sad turn of events, they make up and he chooses to go down with the ship. But we're not following in those steps. In fact, we're stepping right up out of there as fast as we can, and upon hopping into escape pod, we get our next trophy. Until ashes. And with that, we get our happy ending. Well, not exactly, as we have one more mission that takes place in the future where we play as Kylo, and it seems he's found Del's location. And well, essentially, we just go through all of his memories, reliving everything we've seen, except here we're viciously swinging a lightsaber the whole time. But Kylo is searching for the map to Skywalker, and well, soon enough, Del gives it up.
Bayora. He took it to Bayora.
Discoveries. There we go. That's the campaign done. And then he gets a shot in the head and the campaign is over. Although they did actually add a single DLC to this game that extends the story, and I'll go through it quick since there's only 3 trophies. But basically we find out that Del and Aiden had a child, and right now they're trying to find him. Although the first mission was literally just some dogfights in this meteor field to get the first trophy. Oh, first mission done right there. But for mission 2, Aiden ends up getting captured and not only finds out Del is dead, but right then her daughter gets exploded out of the sky. And after a quick run through the city on this AT-RT, we find out she's still alive somehow and we get our next trophy. And then for the finale, we flew our way up to this destroyer to fight our way through and blow it up. But right as we're about to get away with it, her daughter gets captured. And although we do save her and give this dude the Palpatine treatment, it turns out Aiden took a shot in the process. And we also get our final campaign trophy here. But in a sad turn of events, Aiden succumbs to her wounds and her daughter steps up to take her place, fully ending the story now. But just quickly before we hop into multiplayer, I needed a bit of warm up with the battle scenarios, which are a set of 16 different fights against bots. Although I only had to beat them on the easiest setting, and doing so for the first one gets me this. But then after about an hour of rushing through all of the rest of them, playing as every character, I had finally gotten to the last one I needed to complete. And in turn for beating every single one of them on the easiest difficulty, I get this. There we go, that's the end. Complete your training. So now it's time for multiplayer, and what better way to start it off than with my favorite game mode, Heroes vs Villains. Now I've been playing this game mode off and on ever since the game first released in 2017. I absolutely love the way combat in this game works, and getting into 1v1s is just so fun. But the first trophy I'm going for here is to win a game of Heroes vs Villains, and well, we were keeping the score pretty even throughout the whole match, right up until the end, when all of a sudden it was 1-6. Although luckily there was some team communication, as I was playing with my buddy Sunsize, and after making it back over with the whole team, we all held our own and bunched up to get one of the craziest clutches to ensure I got that trophy on the first game.
Oh
yes,
my God.
that was a crazy clutch, goddamn. Let's go. Now continuing on with Heroes vs Villains, I had a few more trophies to get here, with the first one being really easy, as I just had to switch characters every time I respawned. And after playing as all of them on both sides, I would get this one. Do or do not. There is no try. But by now we were on our 3rd game, and I had been popping off a bit because by the end of this match I would have my 50th kill. Although first we'd have to fight through one of the most annoying character setups, being a Phasma with a tower. I mean, the only thing worse than that is how OP the Emperor was when this game first released. But after many more battles, I would finally get my 50th right here. Choose your path. Oh, is that my 50 kills? And then I just had one more quick trophy to get here until later, and that would be to play 2v2 and rush the enemy as fast as I could, then and absolutely just whooped them to get the first blood of the match. Quick strike, there we go. Now there will be a huge heroes vs villains grind in the end, but for now it's time to play some other game modes because I would need to go through and get a win on every single one of them. And the first one of those was Strike. Although there was basically nobody playing and the only way we got a lobby was by Sunsize joining on the opposite side. But I mean, there was no other way to get it, so that was just a free win right there. I won. But next up was Blast, which is basically just team deathmatch, so I thought it would be super easy to find a match. But we ended up having to do the exact same thing again to start it up. Although halfway through the match, we actually ended up with a fairly full lobby. But even then, my team easily won that one with a nice big lead. Now for the only one that was actually populated at the time, we have Galactic Assault. And I mean reasonably so. This game mode has everything from starships to massive battles and of course the heroes. And we had actually gotten a really good team here, and after a long struggle, we got our first win on the first match. But we do have one game mode left to win, being Starfighter Assault. Also my least favorite. I am not a fan of the ship flying. I suck at it. But for now, I just had to simply win a game. And I don't know if it was beginner's luck, but I was absolutely popping off here. And I ended up doing so on my first try to get my final trophies right here. Outbound flight. There we go. Finally got the win. And a galaxy at war. That's for winning a match in every single multiplayer game. But now it's time we go through and do all the easy kill count trophies, such as getting 20 kill streaks with the interceptor ships, or even just simply destroying 25 objectives in this game mode. But then back on foot in Galactic Assault, I would have a few more things, such as using the officer to boost 100 allies. And I mean, getting them off spawn was the way to go. But the next one did take slightly longer since I needed to use the sniper and get 25 headshots, but I was able to get them all super quick. And speaking of quick, the next one was for getting 25 milestones, which I would not be able to explain how I got it. And then moving on, I had to play through quite a few games for the next one, which you can tell by how high my character's level is. I mean, I was only playing multiplayer while Triple XP was active, so that helped out a lot, but the reason I was playing this character for so long is to get 150 total kills by only using the sentry gun, which might have taken me a lot longer because of people always stealing my kills. But here's when I finally got it. Sentry mode engaged, there we go. And for the only one left that doesn't take forever to get, I had to use the Vanguard shotgun to get 3 kills with it before it disappeared. And it's not exactly that easy of a thing to do. Well, that was until we went to the enemy bot spawn and Sunsize would protect me while I ran in popping off.
Guard! For Valhalla!
And after a few successful goes, I would get this. Come on, there's like 10 bots. There it is, not all miss.
Don't worry, I got you.
But that's where the easy part ends, leaving us with 5 trophies left that all take a very long time to complete. With the very first one being the reason that most people don't platinum this game, considering it took me 7 hours straight of non-stop flying starfighters around. Because I had to take out 25 hero ships, and I know 25 doesn't sound like much, but to actually get these kills is an absolute pain. First off, I had to play as a fighter ship, which is basically the equivalent of a stormtrooper going up against Darth Vader. The amount of health they have and the sheer speeds they move at make this task unbelievably difficult, especially considering that the only people playing this mode are all super high levels and this is all that they play. And I'm not lying when I say I sat here for over 7 hours non-stop playing this. It was that rare to actually get the kill. I mean, most of the time it would just get stolen by someone. But after going at it all damn night, here's when I had finally popped the trophy around 6 in the morning or something like that. Give me the kill. Give me the kill. Yes! Yes, I got it. Multitasking finally after 8 damn hours. 8 hours. That is insane. Then once I started my next game, I got my trophy for reaching level 25. And keep in mind, I had only been playing this while Triple XP is active as well. And we still have to get all the way to 50. But we'll get back to that because I still have a couple more hours of ship flying to do that I was just oh so excited for. I mean, luckily it was my last one here, but for it, I had to use the bomber class to get 50 kills using the torpedoes. And to make sure that those torpedoes didn't just get a hit marker, I would first have to shoot the enemy down low enough and then not only hope that they didn't just easily dodge the missile, but I also had to hope that no one would just steal my damn kill. And well, I was not having a good time doing this, spending over 7 hours the day before flying and then waking up and spending another few hours here. I was over it. I mean, you can tell by my reaction when I had finally gotten it done. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Boom, bitch. The bomber. No more ships ever again. Get me out of here. And so now there's only one thing left to do, and that would be to play Heroes vs. Villains non-stop every week on triple XP to grind out levels until I could finally reach the max of 50. I mean, there probably is faster ways to level up, but I wanted to enjoy myself because like I said, I love this game mode. I mean, it does get pretty damn toxic sometimes, especially when there's a full team of enemy shooters, but for the most part, this game mode is just so damn fun to play and I love the combat. But after hopping on the next week after and doing a lot of grinding, I had also gotten the only other remaining trophy, which is for getting 500 kills as a hero. Oh, we are the spark. There we go. But from there, I would just hop on for a good amount of time every week to rake in that triple XP, grinding out Heroes vs. Villains and having a blast doing so. I just really wish they would have kept this game going. I mean, the possibilities are crazy. Since recording this, I've been playing a lot of the modded Battlefront 2 on PC, and seeing what could have been done with this game is actually insane. Why they gave up or didn't create a Battlefront 3 just baffles me. And even worse is how they ruined the damn Classic Collection. I loved playing the OG Battlefront 2 growing up. That game is so damn great. But either way, we need them to make a new multiplayer game, that's for sure. But after 3 separate weeks of hopping on and grinding, totaling up to 60 hours of gameplay total, it was finally time for me to reach that glorious level 50 and get my platinum. The force is strong with this one. There we go, now it popped. Platinum trophy. They didn't even give it a name. Now that is a platinum I am super happy to have. And if you enjoyed this part of the video, let me know by liking the video and subscribing, and maybe I'll do the first Battlefront in the future as well. But with that, it's time we get into game number 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, I haven't played this game since release, so I was hyped for this. I also kind of forgot everything about the story as well, but we of course start out with meeting our main character, Cal Kestis. And he's been in hiding on Braca working as a scrapper, since, you know, Order 66 and all. But our first task is to get to work and climb all the way to the top of this ship, alongside our buddy Prof. But right after we get there, a cable snaps and we go for a death slide all the way down. And well, instead of letting his buddy die, Cal uses the Force to save him and in turn exposes himself as a Jedi. But with the workday over and on our ride back, we also get a flashback to his master. But then things take a turn for the worst as the 2nd and 9th sisters appear looking for us. And in turn for saving his life, Prof does the same for us. No! And then we get tossed off a cliff and have to run for our life, slicing through stormtroopers and even getting shot at by ships. And eventually the 2nd sister catches up to us and we get into our first boss fight that I just got absolutely decimated in. I am definitely a Padawan when it comes to this game's combat, but losing this fight is also inevitable as we get saved by this ship that turns out to be our new friends, Seer and Grease. And it turns out they have some big plans.
Like what?
Like rebuilding the Jedi Order.
But with that, we get our first trophy of the game, the Mantis. So now we're off to our first planet, Bogano, so we can find this.
I believe that vault holds the key to rebuilding the Jedi Order.
But we also meet our new best friend here, BD1. And after only a few minutes of exploring, I came across my first workbench, and thanks to all of the premium content, I was able to get my favorite color and fully customize my lightsaber for my next trophy. But with that, I started making my way towards the temple, although to actually get there, I would have to go through my first flashback with Cal as a young Padawan. And after I complete this here wall running course, I would unlock the ability to do so permanently. Well, I guess it's more so remembering, but after wall running my way all the way up to the top, I found the entrance to the temple, and once it opens up, we crawl in and BD spits out a hologram of Eno Cordova.
I have placed inside this vault a Jedi holocron containing a list of the names and locations of young Force sensitives throughout the galaxy.
And then he tells us he has another test for us first. But before that happens, we get this. A long time ago. And so with that, we were headed off to our next planet, Zepho. And after fighting through a few stormtroopers, I came across a crate holding a poncho, which is the final item I need to get this next trophy. Now, one thing I can say that I don't like about this game is how terrible the maps are to navigate. I mean, I got confused or lost way too often playing through this. But the goal here right now was to find my way to this giant elevator and make my way down into the tomb so I could fight my way through a few guardians and eventually find my next move to remember, which in this case is force push, and we use it right away to push all these balls around to solve the puzzle. And then we make our way back out of here, which in turn gets us this for completing the tomb. The obstacle is the way. But now we're headed to the next planet, which just so happens to be Kashyyyk. And well, it's completely populated by the Empire, so first we take over an AT-AT and mow them all down to clear out a nice landing spot. Although that's not all of them, of course, and right away while fighting through some more troopers, I was able to get my next trophy for defeating 50 enemies by reflecting their shots right back at them. And after a lot more confusion with making my way through the map, I freed some Wookiees and was able to find an upgrade that allows BD-1 to control enemy droids, which was perfect because that means I could get yet another trophy. I just needed to hack one of them and let him take out an enemy for me just like so. Don't mess with BD-1. Then once I was able to finish off the rest of the enemies here, including this AT-ST, we freed the rest of the Wookiees and got this. The Wookiees have been freed. So for now, we're done on Kashyyyk and it's time to head back to Zepho because apparently it has a second tomb for us to go through. Woohoo! But on the way there, I would get another 2 trophies, which both required me to buy the kicking upgrade in my skill tree. And for the first one, I would just have to straight up kick an enemy to death. Yes, I got it. Kick off. Now I gotta run. But then for the second one, I would have to let one of these Phylac things kick me first, and then I would have to kick him right back, which definitely is not as easy as it seems and took me quite a few tries to actually get him. But continuing on through this terribly confusing planet, it had me fighting through a lot of enemies, and of course getting lost for a good half an hour before I finally came across the tomb. And apparently the second sister was already here waiting for me. And well, I got completely annihilated as I still hadn't quite gotten good at the combat. There we go. Although the second attempt went a lot better and I was able to slice through her while also barely even getting hit. Now we're doing damage. Now we're doing damage. Oh yeah. She's getting smoked. Well, up until the end anyways, but luckily I only had to get her to half health to end this fight. Oh, here we go. I got her halfway. I got this. I got this. Oh, that's it? Never mind. I don't get to beat her now. At least I did a second try. Although upon getting away, she tells us she was Seer's apprentice and that Seer had turned on her by not only giving her up to the Empire, but also by using the dark side of the Force. Although with that over, we're now free to run through the tomb, and while making my way through, I was making sure to toss every single enemy I could off the edge, because I would need to do so to 25 of them total, and I would get this. Look out below. I also would remember another move here after the ship shoots my lightsaber out of my hand, sending me into a flashback where I would unlock Force Pull. And that's exactly what would be used to finish off the rest of the puzzles here. But I also got some other trophies right after, such as Bank Shot for using an enemy to kill another enemy by colliding them together. Although I just threw this one at the wall and it popped up for some reason, so hey, I'll take it. But literally right after that is also when I got this for parrying my 100th enemy in the game. And then to finish completing this tomb, I was genuinely very confused for a few minutes, but after a few painful attempts, I had it figured out, and from there we finally got our next message from Cordova.
Find an astrium, if any still exist.
Oh, and we also got our next trophy as well. Everything is connected. So now it was time to try and navigate my way back to the ship, which didn't go so well as I ended up in a fight with a bounty hunter who ended up just kidnapping me and bringing me to some sort of arena to fight through a bunch of enemies, which was actually a good thing in the end because the first enemy I had to fight through here was an Ogdo, and to get a trophy I would need to use Force Pull on his tongue and then slice it right off. But from there I finished off the arena and took out the bounty hunter at the end, which actually helps me work towards a future trophy. But then Seer and Grease come and save us, and we head off back to Kashyyyk for some more exploring, which eventually unlocks me the underwater breather so I can, well, breathe underwater. But with that unlocked, we can now go to some more new areas such as this super long slide that we just zoom right down. But I also unlock yet another move here, being double jump, and having that helps me reach this super huge bird that takes us for a nice ride all the way to the top where we get another Cordova hologram, and it tells us the next place we need to go to.
Cooch's tomb.
Although right as we were about to leave, the ninth sister blows up the big bird and comes to attack us. Come on, what you got? Nothing.
Not bad for trash.
Trash? And well, I didn't even die once this time. I actually did surprisingly well and held it down. I mean, the fight did take me quite a while to fully get through, and I might have used up every single one of my stims, but with only a couple hits of health left at the end, I had actually pulled it off and took her out first try. No. One mess up like that, I can lose. No, I'm like one hit now. She's so low too. There we go. I got this. Oh, come on, here we go. This is it. Square. Yes! Let's go. Her name was Masana Tide, and then she gets extinguished and our bird friend turns out to be just fine. Although that means it's time to head to the deadliest planet of all by the name of Dathomir. And it's not only the deadliest because navigating is terrible, but also because of all the enemies here, such as the Night Sister and all of the Night Brothers we have to fight through just to make our way through here. And comparatively to other enemies throughout the game, it takes a lot more hits to get through these guys, that's for sure. But on top of that, we have this creepy old hooded dude that for now is called the Wanderer. And well, we will see him again later. But after half an hour of absolute pain trying to find where to go, I eventually came across the scariest of all the enemies. Here we have Gorgara. That is wild, holy crap. And well, thankfully, he's actually a lot more bark than bite, as the fight mostly just consisted of me dodging a few hits until I would get my chance to get some in and slowly but surely chip away at his health. I mean, I guess I did get headbutted once and had to use my first stim. Okay, well, maybe it happened twice, but besides those two, I was able to get through the first part of this fight with ease. I mean, I am only playing on Jedi Knight difficulty, but that's solely because I'm playing Force Unleashed on max difficulty after this, and I didn't really want to play two really hard games in a row. But for phase 2 of the bird fight, I actually ended up dying because apparently I just wasn't fast enough at climbing this mountain. So I mean, that was sad, but from there I just had to hop on and fly him around until I crashed him face first into the ground so I could get this. Gorgara Falls. Is that how you say that? So now I was back to exploring this wonderful hellscape of a map until I had finally found the tomb I was looking for. Although right as we touch it, we get sent into our longest flashback yet, consisting of Cal's memories from when Order 66 was initiated. And we not only get to see how he escaped, but also how his master had died, making sure that he could do just that. And that's also how Cal got his lightsaber, bringing us to the next scene where after fighting him in this vision, he breaks our saber. And the craziness doesn't end there, because as soon as we step outside, we find the Wanderer, who removes his hood and turns out to be this guy.
Aaron Malikos.
And well, he wants us to join his little cult. But before anything else can happen, the Night Sister appears pissed off and sends a bunch of minions after us, so of course we got right up out of there. Although now we're in need of a brand new saber, which brings us to this very swift but icy planet so we can make our way through these caves to get our very own saber crystal, which not only unlocks us the ability to split our sabers, but also gets us this trophy for a more civilized age. And so splitting our sabers actually also helps us get another trophy for hitting an enemy with all 3 saber types. Okay, I hit him with that, hit him with a little bit of that, and then I hit him with a little bit of that. There we go, Blade Master. Now I was supposed to head back to Dathomir, but I wanted to go get another trophy on Zepho that I really should have just waited until after 4, but I had set my sights on it and was determined. So you see, I had to make it all the way to the top of this ship through some sort of crazy maze. And well, never mind the 10 minutes I had spent just trying to get here, on top of that I spent another half an hour trying to navigate this pain and eventually just gave in and followed a YouTube video. So yeah, a good 45 minutes wasted to get this here trophy. Visiting Alderaan places. Although it kind of worked out because I was able to get another stim up here, and I am for sure going to need more with what's next on Dathomir. Well, actually it's next after this first trophy I got here, which ties back to the bounty hunter one I talked about before. As on my way into the temple, I ran into the very final bounty hunter that I needed to take out, and his name is Clunk. And well, Clunk may have been a tank with a lot of health, but he got absolutely clunked and popped my next trophy. Aha! Scum and villainy. Oh, I defeated every bounty hunter in the game. And well, now it's time for what I said happens next. And first, we actually make peace with the Night Sister, but then it's time to take out Taron Malikos. And I mean, even though I'm not playing on the hardest difficulty, this was still fairly painful for me to get through. Well, the first half wasn't too bad, and I was actually able to get some pretty good combos in. But then once we get past the cutscene and head into the second half is when my skills fell short, and even with the help of the Night Sister, I ended up getting laid right out. No, the rocks, the rocks. I'm so dead. Oh, what? I thought I blocked. What? But I, of course, went right back in with complete confidence this second time and absolutely annihilated him throughout the first half of the fight. I mean, I was just going crazy. But then once again, part 2 got way more hectic and I started taking some deadly hits in, making me run through the very last of my stims. Not the rocks. Not the rocks. No, I'm dead. Oh my god, I'm dead. But there was no way I was going to die again, so I made sure to focus up and lock right in at the end, bringing us both down to our final hits. Oh, there we go. No, I'm not dead. He's dead. I'm not dead. He's dead. Oh my god, I did it. I thought I was screwed. I knew he was no good. But with that done, we are able to find the artifact we need, and we also unlock a new friend that will be coming to fly with us from now on. Which brings us to the next trophy, because we have one more crewmate to go and find, and it turns out to be this little bogling right here. Full house. And then, once we bring our artifact back to the Bogano Temple, we unlock this trophy. And well, then we enter this crazy vision where we speak to the Zepho Sage, then we see a dark side version of Cal. Pretty deadly looking. But with that, we get our long-awaited holocron. And then of course she shows up, but after Cal grabs her saber, he gets a flashback of how Seer had betrayed her, and in the meantime she takes off with the holocron. And so we go back to the ship and give her saber to Seer, where she knights us with said dark side saber. Pretty crazy. But anyways, of course we aren't going to let her get away with taking our cube, so after her we went to this here underwater fortress where we had to fight through plenty of enemies to find her. So many in fact, I actually ended up getting a trophy along the way too for slowing down this trooper's blaster bolt and sending it right back at him. Now fighting through Trilla here is definitely the most unforgiving boss fight in the game, and one that I would struggle with quite a bit. And by quite a bit I mean I was getting absolutely tossed around like a ragdoll and was dying very fast over and over again. It wasn't until about 7 deaths in when I had finally gotten the hang of her attacks and was doing quite good for myself actually. I was nearing the end of the fight with a full health bar compared to her tiny amount of health. I thought I had it in the bag, and then I got cooked once again. Come on, I can do this. A couple more hits. No, that's it. I thought I could jump instead of dodge. I'm an idiot. And well, I mean, there was no way I was just gonna get that close and then let it happen again. So now was my time to shine, and shine I did. Right off the bat, I took a huge chunk out of her health, and although I had a little setback after that one, I went right back in and did the same thing a second time, bringing her below half health, and I still had 4 stims left, so there was no way I was going to lose this now. Well, that's what I told myself before not getting a single hit in over the next minute. Meanwhile, she made us use 2 more stims. But right from there, I stepped my game up and finally persevered this fight. Come on, I can do this. 2 stims and full health. She's almost dead. I got this. There we go. I'm doing it. There we go. Free hit right there. Let's go. I got this. Okay. Very good. I got it. Right here. Yes. Damn. But then Vader shows up to choke us out and then chase us down in the most horror movie way possible. This is definitely the most cool scene in the entire game. I remember the first time I seen this, I was going crazy. But once we're able to get out by flooding the place, we escape with the whole gang and we finally have our holocron. Or not. He just chops the thing we spent the whole game trying to get right in half. But with that, we get our trophy for beating the game. Trust only in the Force. What an amazing game. Damn, I forgot how good this was. I felt like I was playing it all over again. I didn't remember anything. So now it's time for us to clean up the last few trophies and get this platinum. And I wanted to start with ones that I was the closest to getting, which was probably a terrible way to do it since I went back and forth to all the planets so many times during this cleanup that I almost lost my mind. But there was 2 that I went for first, with the first one for collecting all of the 75 Force Echoes scattered throughout the worlds. And then the second was for getting the last of BD1's encrypted logs. And well, doing those made me realize how despicably painful it was to navigate the maps and find the exact collectibles you need. So for now, I went to finish off some combat trophies before doing the rest. And well, it turns out that using the battle grid training area is the easiest way to get them, so I popped quite a few here, with the first one being for defeating 3 enemies with a single saber throw. Now the second one was slightly annoying since I had to run it over and over again a total of 25 times to make sure to slow the enemy down and then take them out, but it would eventually get me this. And now the last 2 were super quick since I was only a few away from each, such as precision evading 100 attacks, which I got right away, or even the next one was for defeating 20 enemies with explosives, and I would get this. Now there's one thing I had avoided throughout this game, and that was the mini bosses, because well, I didn't need to fight them, but apparently I do now, as there's a trophy for defeating 4 of them, and so I went off to each planet to find these terrifying monsters monsters and exfil them from existence. Although I mean I didn't actually have any trouble beating any of them since I had all the skills now. The only one I had a little bit of struggle with was the crazy looking werewolf alien on Dathomir. He gave me a couple good hits, that's for sure, but with the final one defeated, I would end up getting the trophy I was going for. Legendary beasts. So sadly, that means it's time for me to go collectible hunting, my absolute favorite thing ever. I mean, I was only a couple away from max stims by now, so I did that first, and it was pretty easy to get this one. Also, I guess the plant one wasn't too bad, considering I had gotten most of them throughout my playthrough, but it also meant going through every planet for who knows how many times now to get the last of the seeds. And after getting them all and a couple rests at the save point, I would get that one out of the way. Green thumb, there we go. But that leaves the worst trophies in this game for getting every chest and exploring 100% of every single planet. And oh man, was I ever pulling my hair out on this one. I was at it for so long that I even ended up getting my very last skill point while doing so. But navigating these maps, trying to find the exact spot you're missing or the exact case you're missing or the path that's still invisible, it's all terrible. I hated every second of it. I had to use a YouTube video just to navigate Dathomir and complete that planet. Even after using the video, I went back and had to use the video again just to get through it a second time. The map layouts completely break my brain. But I mean, luckily there's plenty of resources out there to help me, such as Reddit posts or even the 3D map website. That's an absolute lifesaver. I would actually go crazy trying to do that without those. Being stuck at 97% and having no clue where you're supposed to go is just insanity. And then on top of all that, there was a few times where I had gotten glitches such as this and I couldn't escape. And of course it would be when I hadn't saved in a while, resulting in me sometimes setting myself back up to an hour or two and then having to redo everything. And well, don't even get me started on going through Zepho. I hated that map. I spent hours there. But needless to say, I was having a terrible time with these collectibles. But at least in the very end, I was able to set my final 2 trophies to both pop in the exact same area. There it is. Let's go. Come on. Last chest in the game right here. A galaxy far, far away. That's the 100%, I'm pretty sure. And now if I open this, that should get every chest in the game. Collector, yes, there we go. And now, A New Hope. Jedi Fallen Order Platinum, let's go. This game is so amazing, but just traversing the world and trying to get the 100% and all the collectibles is such a pain. Holy. I spent 4 hours on this world alone. I mean, that's because of the glitches too, but still. And well, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on this game. Absolutely amazing, but terrible to navigate and get the collectibles. Although I would still love to platinum this game again on the hardest difficulty sometime, so whenever the 3rd game in the series finally releases, maybe I'll make a trilogy video getting all the platinums on the hardest difficulties. If you want to see that, drop a like on the video and comment down below. But now it's time we move on to our 3rd game of the video, and also the hardest one of all, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Now, amazing as this game is, I was scared for this platinum because it needs to be beaten on the hardest difficulty, which I'm making even harder. You see, it's not supposed to unlock until you beat the game for your first time so that you can replay it with all of your levels maxed out. But I'm just going to be entering a code to unlock the Sith Master difficulty, and we'll be doing everything in one playthrough. And well, it turned out to be even more painful than I thought it would. But before we get to that, we have the prologue mission where we get to play as the one and only Darth Vader. And he plays exactly as you would expect him to, completely OP and just an absolute menace. I mean, you just destroy everything in sight, although his jumping around is pretty damn funny. But I was even taking out so many stormtroopers along the way, it got me my first trophy. Worst day shift manager ever. I also popped this one for getting a quad kill, but as I made my way through this level, I ended up finding an unlimited spawn point, which also got me my trophies for a ×8 kill and also a ×12 kill. And since I didn't know I'd be back here for a lot of trophies at the end, I was grinding out 200 Wookiee kills for one of them, since this is the only place it can be done. And while doing so, I also got my 100 kills with the saber throw. But then once I got my 200 kills and got that trophy, I started heading my way out of there and got yet another one for 100 force push defeats. But with that, we were back on track and ended up finding this hut with a rogue Jedi coming out of it to be our first boss fight of the game. Although even with being being Vader, I was definitely not used to this game's mechanics yet, and I was struggling quite a bit with not getting hit. I mean, by the time I had him down to 1/3 of his health, he had me with 1 hit left, and so I locked right in and actually went crazy here and beat him on the first try. Let's go, I did it with 1 health. And so with him taken care of, I get this trophy. Invasion. Prologue has been completed. But that brings us to our origin story as little Starkiller rips the blade out of Vader's hand to save his father. And then Vader decides to save him and even takes out all the stormtroopers so that there's no witnesses. But that brings us to present day as his apprentice, where we get our first test.
Master Ram Kota. He is attacking a critical Imperial shipyard. Destroy him and bring me his lightsaber.
I shall leave at once, Master.
But then right as we walk out of the room, we get attacked by Obi-Wan, which is actually just Proxy with a training module and is something we'll see more of later.
Ah, Master! Another excellent duel!
And we also meet our new captain by the name of Juno Eclipse. However, like Vader said, we're after Master Ram Kota, bringing us into our first mission. And well, very quickly I got a hint at just how hard this would be, as I got cooked as soon as I came across my first enemies. Oh no, I died already? There's no way. But then I realized I could just get rid of enough enemies to open this door and run past the rest. But also through here is where I found my first holocron, which is not only the collectibles in this game that I'll need to collect all of, but it's also how I level up my stats and unlock costumes and even lightsaber colors. But I kept making my way through all of the enemies and just getting a grip on how this combat works, and something super crazy about this game is the environment destruction. Being able to destroy and manipulate so many things is insane, such as these TIE fighters that explode the bridge and even threw me off the map. But seeing as I was so easy to kill, Force Push and Force Grip were my best friend getting through this level. I even got a trophy for getting 100 Force Grip kills. Ripped. But one thing about this game is the levels are very long. I mean, I was going through this one fighting through non-stop enemies for an hour and a half by the time I got to the boss fight. Albeit I did die and have to redo areas a few times, and I even had to fight through an AT-ST at one point. But doing all of that and getting all my collectibles along the way got me enough force points to get 250,000 in a single level for this trophy. But plenty of enemies and a lot of time later, I had finally made it to my first real test on this difficulty.
A boy?
And well, since I was still terrible, I wasn't really doing much damage at all, which well, just resulted in me dying while I barely even got a hit in. Oh. And then yet again on the second try, it went down the exact same way. But you know, as they say, third try's the charm, and well, it actually wasn't my case. I had gathered up enough knowledge and skill at this point to actually be able to pull off combos and get him on the ground. Although keeping my own health up was still kind of a problem. However, lucky for me, after a few more hits, I got to the halfway checkpoint where he breaks off the dome thing we're fighting and sending us pummeling down to this planet to finish off the second half. And considering my health was so low, I died pretty quick, but since I now spawn at full health with a checkpoint, I had this in the bag. Well, almost. With him now having a couple more new moves and the whole floor turning into lava from the speeds we're crashing at, I had a few more deaths under my belt. But eventually, I went absolutely crazy on him, barely even getting hit the whole time. And with the help of the lava floor, I cooked him. Literally. And that's the end. Let's go, man. And I gotta say, I love the finisher cutscenes in this game. They go so hard. And so with that, I get my next trophy. And Ram Kota says that he senses himself as my future master before we toss him out into space. So back at Vader now, he has another Jedi for us to hunt down.
Casdan Paratus is far more powerful than you.
And well, that's definitely an understatement. But we also find out that Vader is working to take out the Emperor, and that's what our training is for. And so off to Raxus Prime we went, and the first area was pretty easy, just a whole bunch of platforming. But even once I found some enemies, I had now unlocked lightning to use against them, making things way easier. Well, up until I found these absolute menacing enemies that felt like bosses. I mean, I could barely even touch them. They just kept annihilating me. They could even just teleport right to me. And to get to the next area, I would need a few seconds of peace to force lift this platform, which of course just can't happen. But after a few tries, I was able to run through the enemies fast as possible to get out of there, bringing me to a hallway filled with Jawas. And well, I just started electrocuting them all. And after doing so to 25 of them, I would get this. Bully. But about halfway through this level, I ended up coming across a mini boss here called a Junk Titan. And well, I didn't know the trick to kill them yet, so I just kept getting killed. And to make things worse, I would have to spend 5 minutes minutes killing off all the other enemies before him every time I died. But after a full 30 minutes of zapping and throwing things at him, I made it through there finally, just to come across another one of them in the next room. And well, this one I just didn't want anything to do with, so I rushed right through the door behind him. And since I was getting all the collectibles, I was able to upgrade my skills as best as I could so far. And then once I took this elevator ride up, it brings me to the boss fight of this level. So this here is the absolute hardest and most painful boss fight throughout the whole entire game. Nothing even comes close. I ended up spending an hour and a half straight here getting non-stop smoked. And for the first hour of that, I couldn't even hit him enough to take a third of his health before I died. This guy's playstyle is so painful as he basically just blocks everything and then smokes you. The only way I would be able to actually get a hit on him is to precisely lightning zap him when he's rushing me and then throw him at a wall. Although after a few times of doing that, there's this perfect block he has that's able to one-hit you mostly every time. It is completely broken. He just one-hit me. Holy shit. And speaking of broken, the screen angles during boss fights in this game really don't help out much at all. However, I did find out you could actually lock onto the enemy, so that helped a fair bit. And after literally a full hour of non-stop dying and practicing here, I was able to figure out his moves enough to get him into the second phase. Oh, Junk Titan. What the? Which turned out to be a Junk Titan mid-fight, and for a checkpoint, I would have to defeat him first. And with only being able to run back and forth in this little tiny area, this fight is just completely unfair. But at least I had gotten the timing down on the first part pretty good and was dodging all of his moves to be able to make it here every single time if I did die. And while after a lot of struggle on the Junk Titan, I figured out that I could just hold down my Force Lightning, making it do way more damage. I really wish I would have looked that up sooner. But with that knowledge, I wiped him out easily and finally had my checkpoint, which yet again was just the same fight with him again for his second part of health. And after spending so much time in the first area, I had this completely down. But then yet again, once he was at 1/3 of his health, a whole other Junk Titan spawned to fight through. And well, I also had that down by now, so after defeating that one, it would finally bring us to the end that I had completely become a pro at by now. I did it, it's over with. Oh my god, I actually did it. Damn! But with that, I get my trophy for beating the level. Holy crap, I can't believe I finally did it. There we go. Oh, and I also get this trophy for getting every collectible in a level. But once again, we went back to Vader. Although he says we now have to take down a Jedi Master by the name of
Master Shock T.
And well, she's over on Felucia, and she's even accompanied by her apprentice, Maris Brood. And she'll be back later to cause us some pain, that's for sure. But for now, it was time to see the new Shockwave move I unlocked and make my way through this planet. Although I got a trophy right away for getting 100 kills with the lightning I unlocked from the last level. But then I kept making my way through, and lucky for me, the enemies here were a lot easier to fight through than the last planet. I was just zooming my way through. But eventually, I ran straight into a Rancor, which I could probably just skip past, but I need to kill 6 total for a trophy later. Although defeating them is just the same as the Junk Titan, except here they move a lot faster. But the 2 hours I spent on the last level had really gotten my skills up, and I wasn't having any problems until I reached this area with a total of 3 Rancors altogether. And again, I probably could have just run right past them all, but I wanted that trophy, so I spent a good 20 minutes dying to them over and over again, until I was eventually able to drag them one by one into a corner to take them all out. And then as soon as I got through there and went to the next area, I found Shock T. Now, like I said, I had finally gotten a good grip on this game and was getting pretty good, so this boss fight didn't really faze me at all. The new move went absolutely insane here. I mean, I did have a couple of deaths just learning her attacks, but it only took 4 tries until I had figured them out and was able to take her down to half health to get to my first checkpoint. But then the second phase changes up a bit as we have these big Sarlacc arms that slam down on us for a nice insta-kill. But once again, I quickly figured out the pattern they drop down in and used the exploding bubbles around the map to help me give her a beat down. And of course, we have a super cool cutscene to end it off before getting the trophy here. Shock T has been eliminated. Let's go, man. Jedi hunt. Oh, and then she says this ominous statement about how Sith always betray each other, which actually happens right away when we get back. You see, Vader ends up stabbing Starkiller because the Emperor found out about him and wants him gone. He even tosses him out into space. But then we wake up in this room and he says he saved us. What a nice guy. But he tells us to sever all ties from our past and go create an army to take on the Emperor. But before we can do that, we have to fight our way through this ship and escape, which also got got me a trophy for 100 repulse kills along the way. But this very short level is also where we get to meet the Purge Troopers, some of, if not the most painful enemies throughout the entire game. But once we go and find our beloved Captain Juno Eclipse, we complete this level. And right then, we get a cutscene showing Leia being held captive on Kashyyyk, which will be a future mission. But for now, we're off to find Master Ram Koda, who's just become a drunk after we blinded him. Although I guess what he said earlier about being our master came true. But this level is another super quick one. I just had to guide him out of here and get us to safety. And while doing so, I ended up taking out my 150th Stormtrooper and got a trophy. But finishing off the level would be a bit of a mess, as I'd have to fight through this huge area covered in a stupid amount of enemies, such as jetpack troopers or even these damn Uggernaut vehicles that kept cooking me. But worst of all was after taking out everyone in sight, this Shadow Guard would spawn, and if I died at any point, I would have to redo the whole area from the very beginning, which may or may not have happened about 6 times. But eventually I just played it really slow, running away from the Shadow Guard and only throwing stuff at him from a distance. And although it took me about 10 minutes, it was better than doing everything over multiple times. And once he's defeated, I get my next trophy, Vapor Room. So off to Kashyyyk we go now, because Master over here says that he has someone for us to meet. But right when we land, we end up finding the hut Vader stole us from and even get a visit from his father as a ghost. But of course we also unlock a new move here, being Lightning Shield, which is definitely a really cool move. But for the most part, this level was pretty straightforward. I just had to fight through a lot of stormtroopers to make my way inside the building to find the contact. And as it turns out, Leia is the one we're saving, so that her father will help us. But she wants us to go destroy this skyhook first to save all of the Wookiees on Kashyyyk. And so off we went to fight our way over there. Although it wouldn't just be that simple to take it down, because I'd have to go around taking these pillars out, which are also guarded by a whole bunch of these stupid Purge Troopers and even these completely OP snipers that are just one shot. And to top it all off, even if I did get rid of them all, once I got to the end, we had the deadliest ATST at the end to ruin my day. And well, I ended up spending so much time here and re-killing all of the enemies, I not only got enough points to get this trophy for getting 500,000 points in a level, but I also got this one right after for getting 600,000 points. However, once again, my problem was just me trying to rush through it, and after taking it really slowly, taking out the enemies one by one, I was able to get all the skyhook pins out to completely destroy it and save all of the Wookiees. Skyhook made that level take way longer than it should have. Now you'd think we're off to see the Senator now, but it turns out he's been captured too, and by none other than Maris Brood. Remember how I said we'd see more of her later? So back to Felucia we went, and it's not only the Felucian warriors we have to worry about this time, but we also have plenty of stormtroopers that have taken over the planet. And of course our best pals, the Purge Troopers. Man, do I ever hate those guys. But the goal here was to shut down this huge generator and make our way into the Sarlacc pit. No, do I have to redo everything? No. I mean, we're actually supposed to use the elevator, but right then I got a trophy for taking out 500 Imperials total. But with that, now I take the proper way down and had to make my way through all these damn creepy tentacles trying to touch me. Although once I got out of there, I ran straight into a Rancor. Although luckily he was solo and made for an easy takedown, getting me one closer to my trophy. And before I found the next one, I just have to quickly mention how terrible this spawn point is. But after way too many tries, I was able to get lucky one time and zoomed right past them to find my final Rancor. And after a whole bunch of force lightning to his dome, he went down and I got my trophy. The bigger they are. Now the only thing left here is to find the Senator and get out of here, which gets interrupted by the newly turned Sith Maris Brood and her devastating Bull Rancor. And well, this boss fight is what I would definitely put as the second hardest in the game, because holy crap is it ever broken. You see, he isn't like any other Rancor. He just tanks all my damage just to run at me like a madman and smack me around. And to make things worse, every few hits, Maris will spawn in out of nowhere and come slice me up. Or even this damn force push move. But worst of all is that this area is beyond laggy, and the game's performance seems to take a big decline here. The FPS just drops right down. And with all of the obstacles around the map blocking my path, and his ability to just swipe me out of the air while I was dodging, I ended up spending a solid hour here in pain. And even though I did eventually get used to the performance, it turns out there is no checkpoints here. I have to defeat him all in one health bar. And after quite a while of struggling, I did find out that jumping to dodge was was one of my main problems, so I just stayed grounded and was getting a lot further from there. Although the Maris jump scares did get me caught up quite a few times. But with a full hour of practice, I had finally gotten the move patterns down and just barely got it done with really low health. Although right after I would have to fight through her, of course. But actually I only died once, as this part of the fight was super easy to get through. I could just throw her onto the ground and stab away. And I mean, I did also finish this part with 1 health, but hey, still counts. Infestation. But with that, we let her run off into hiding and we rescue the senator to form our rebellion. And then Vader leaves us a message saying the best way to attack the Empire is back on Raxus Prime. So that's where we head off to for our second last mission of the game, which also brings us to the absolute worst spawn point in the whole entire game. I spent over an hour here just trying to reach the next one because this area is completely overwhelmed with purge troopers. And those damn lock-on missiles they have are absolutely insane. And I also can't forget the snipers and of course the ATST on top of that once you take out enough enemies. Even with using all of the power-up holocrons around the area, I was still doing terrible. And trying to speed through the door once it opened up also didn't get very far considering all of the snipers up on the rafters. But on my final run, I had played it so slowly, taking out one single enemy at a time, backing them up into the corner and being way too overly cautious, as it was the only way to actually get through apparently. Such an absolutely stupid start to the level, but at least I was able to get a trophy in the next area for destroying 35 droids. I wonder why they picked 35, that is a random number. However, the rest of the level was a nice breeze to fly through up until I found this shadow guard I had to fight, but it actually turned out to be Proxy trying to fulfill his programming by killing us. Pretty good way to stay on your toes right there. But as the fight progresses, he changes between different characters we've already fought, such as Maris Brood or Ram Koda and even Shaak Ti. But I already knew those move patterns, so it was pretty easy to get through. Although the final one is also the coolest of all, as he turns into Darth Maul. But honestly, the fight was just a lot more cool than it was hard, so I was able to just throw him around and give him the beats pretty easily. But then to finish off the level, we have one of the craziest and most iconic moments in the game, in which we have to take down this destroyer using only the Force. I mean, this is just absolutely insane that he's this strong. Although it wasn't as simple as just pulling it down, because I would have to pull, then make sure to take out all the TIE fighters trying to kill me, then keep repeating that process over and over and over until we finally get our trophy for beating the level. Destroyer. And we crash it straight into the planet, causing a lot of destruction. And in the midst of the rubble, we find Proxy, who won't be trying to kill us anymore, as he's lost his programming now. And so we take him out of there and head off to Corellia. And the reason we're here is to meet up with our newly formed Rebel Alliance. But right then, the Empire appears and attacks everyone, and of course Vader has betrayed us.
You agreed to stay away!
I lied, as I have from the very beginning.
And right as he tries to throw us off a cliff, Proxy appears to take the hit for us, leaving just enough time to get rescued by Juno. So now we're heading off to the Death Star to save everyone that was captured, and before we jump out, we even get a little action. But now it's time for the final mission. And well, it starts off as a strong contender for one of the most annoying spawn points, as we're surrounded by all of these snipers, and to be able to get to them, I'd have to do some platforming first without getting shot. Although on top of that, there's also an ATST, which was actually a good thing, since once I was actually able to destroy it, I would get my trophy for taking out 10 total. But from there, I just had to make my way through this long death ray hallway, taking out a whole lot of enemies, including my all-time favorite, the Purge Troopers, which I mean, I just kind of cheesed by standing really far away and throwing stuff at them. But from there, I just had a couple puzzles to solve to be able to enter the final huge area, which basically just consisted of me going up and down this gravity thing to find all of the collectibles on the different platforms here. But before I would even get to enter the boss fight, I would have to take out a shadow guard that's surrounded by a bunch of red guards. Just a little warm-up, I guess, because as soon as I open the next door, we find the Vader we've been looking for. And well, my first try here resulted in me barely even getting a hit on him, while I got absolutely smoked. However, on the second run, I was able to hold my own just long enough to get him down to 2/3 of his health and enter the checkpoint, bringing us into part 2, where he stands in the center, throwing stuff at us just like so. But it turns out I just had to throw something first to stun him, and it was just free hits from there. And then to finish off this section, we just had a one-on-one battle, which I absolutely decimated, by the way. But from there, we break his helmet open and toss him around like a rag doll. And so here's where we have our split endings. Either we fight the Emperor and save our friends, getting the good ending, or we choose to fight Vader for the bad ending. And well, I chose the easiest option and decided to fight Vader first, which I mean wasn't exactly too easy, as I'd spend the next 40 minutes doing so, which was mostly just because of Vader's push ability, because by the time I'd stand back up, he was already hitting me. Well, and also the fact that his health is just unreal and he can take a lot of hits. But just like any other boss fight here, I just had to keep running it over and over, learning his movesets to the best of my ability. Which I mean, even by the final fight, I was still getting hit non-stop. I barely even had any health when I beat this. But I did find out that using the Sith Saber Smash would send him flying, getting me a bunch of free hits while he was down. And so I was able to use that to my advantage and absolutely destroyed him on that same run. There we go, I got it. I perfectly got it. Let's go. Oh, that was difficult to get down. Oh, I got both the sabers? Holy crap. With his own saber. Oh, the double stab. Vader has been defeated. Revenge. Sith Warrior. That's one of the 4. Sith Lord. Apprentice. Where's the one I really want? Yes, Sith Master. Yes. Oh my god. Oh, that was a challenge. Oh, this game is so good. I would gladly do this again on the same difficulty. I loved every minute of it. So for this ending, we try to save our friends from the Emperor, although it doesn't really work out as we end up getting killed by him. But in the final cutscene, we see Starkiller get brought back to life using the Vader treatment, ending off the story. And so right away, I went back to fight the Emperor for that ending, because it also gets me another trophy. Although I played through on Apprentice because there was no way I wanted to spend who knows how long here. This fight is painful. Every single chance he gets, he's sending red guards out to attack you, while he floats around in his invincible orb and throws lightning zapped objects at you. I feel like this would be way worse than the Kasdan fight on max difficulty. Maybe I'll try it one day, but for now, since I was on easy, I just sped through it and got my next trophy. Redemption, there it is. And seeing as this is the good ending here, all of our friends are able to escape, but sadly, the same can't be said for Starkiller. And so with that, we're on to the final few cleanup trophies for this platinum, with the first one being the last 2 holocrons I had missed. And they were both in the very first room on the first level of the game, so it was super quick to get this one done. Then right after that, it's time for the tutorials and the combat modules. And I mean, I already knew how to use all of the moves, so the tutorials were done in a couple minutes for this trophy. And although there was a lot of the combat ones, I was able to fly through them all pretty quickly since I had a good understanding of the game. Well, I mean, all except for this one with the saber flurries. It definitely took me a minute to perfect every single saber swing on all of the enemies, since I didn't even know that was a thing. But as for the rest, I quickly zoomed through them all, and at the end, I would get this. Sith Trials. There we go. But that leaves us with 9 more trophies that all consist of us just farming kills, such as 500 Force Lightning defeats. And the best place to farm a bunch of these was in the first level, since there was a lot of enemy respawns here. Although it did take a little while, since once they stopped spawning, I'd have to restart the level. But the next trophies I got were 100 kills with Lightning Shield, and then following that was 500 kills with the shield. Now the other best place to farm in this game is at the prologue, but since it required a new game to get there, it also seemed like it reset the kill count for my trophies. And on top of that, Vader doesn't have some of the moves we need. But for now, with him, I was able to finish off a couple more we needed, such as 500 Force Push defeats, or even 500 Saber Throw kills right after. And doing those two is what made me realize the kill counts reset, so I went back to the first method to finish off another 2. And those ones would be 500 kills with the Force Repulse, and then 500 defeats with the Force Grip. I don't know why there's so many damn high kill count trophies. Now for the first of the last 2, we have 100 takeouts using aerial ambush jiggle combos, which is literally just a ground pound. But then the final one is for using Force Choke to take out yet another 100. And I didn't even know Force Choke was a thing. Yes, there it is, grappled. And the 100% complete platinum trophy. Yes, sir. That is so awesome. Now, even though I played through this game on the hardest difficulty possible, this game is still an absolute blast and is just absolutely amazing. Although we're not exactly done yet, as there's not only a bunch of really cool DLC, but there's also a second game with DLC. So if you want to see a video where I platinum not only both of the games, but all of the add-ons for both, let me know by liking the video and subscribing. But now we're on to our final game, and one that holds a very special place in gaming for me. LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Now, as you may know, this doesn't exactly have a platinum trophy since it was released before they existed. But when I take a look at every LEGO Star Wars game on PlayStation side by side, I cannot help but choose this one as the best of all. But instead of just getting the 100% on PS3 with no trophies, I figured I might as well at least get something for beating it. And so I'll be playing on Xbox to get every achievement the game has. So let's get into it. Now, I also have a goal here to complete this 100% in under 30 hours. And to make that easier, I'll be breaking my playthrough down into 5 different sections, with the first 4 all consisting of full playthroughs of the game with different objectives. And then for the finale, we'll have all of the miscellaneous stuff like Lego City and the bounty hunter missions. But starting off on our first playthrough, we're just going through beating the story mode while also making sure to collect enough studs to fill up every true Jedi along the way. Oh, and also having a blast doing so because this game is just amazing. I mean, being the most sold LEGO game ever definitely says something. But by the end of the very first level, I was actually able to get my first achievement for getting 5 kills with a single super slam. But on I went, making my way through the levels, maxing out my studs and collecting whatever mini kits I could along the way. And by no means was I trying to speedrun the game. I was just trying to be efficient as possible while also enjoying myself. Well, for the first playthrough, that is. But I had literally just gotten the 100% on the original LEGO Star Wars game a couple months back, so a lot of stuff was still fresh here. Albeit they did change up a fair amount of things, such as how easy the pod racing level is, because in the original it is way more of a challenge. Although we will get to see that later in the bonus room. But the achievements in this game are actually very far and few between. I mean, the next one wasn't until all the way on the final level of this first episode, and it was just for simply destroying 300 droids total. Droid Slayer. Although we also will get one for beating each story, which happens right after we chop Maul in half and watch one of my favorite characters die way too soon. And I gotta say, I love the cutscenes in this game. They always make me laugh, no matter how many times I've seen them. The Phantom Menace. And so that brings us to episode 2. And I mean, I'm probably the odd one out here when I say this, but I really enjoy the second movie, which I definitely can't say the same for all the levels here. I mean, of course we have some bangers, such as Discovery on Kamino, chasing down Jango Fett, or one of my favorites is definitely the Jedi Battle one. I would play this on repeat as a kid. But then we have the bad ones, such as the very first level. I'm just not really a fan of flying these ships around. But I mean, it's not even close to as bad as the gunship cavalry level. Having to get all the bombs and drag them across the map is definitely an easy way to rage at a LEGO game. But upon finishing off the last level and fighting my way through Dooku, I would check my next achievement off the list. Attack of the Clones. Episode 2 is complete. And now that brings us to episode 3, and we're starting off strong with what's one of the best ship flying levels in the game. But it's also an easy moneymaker, which is great because I would need to save up 1,250,000 studs to get my first ×2 brick to start off this deadly grind of maxing out my studs. Which also means I won't be buying a single thing until then. And well, by the time I had chopped Dooku's head off, I hadn't even reached 1,000,000 yet, so we're in for quite the grind. But on I went and made my way through Grievous, which then brings us into what I feel is the longest level out of the first 3 episodes. I was just editing this and I realized I forgot to mention how they got rid of Yoda's hover chair. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive them for that one. And for the most part, I enjoy this one. Just getting across the beach is super annoying. The non-stop enemies make this part terrible. Although I would actually get an achievement at the end of this level, and it's for using Chewbacca to rip off the arms of 25 characters, just like so. There we go. Let the Wookiee win. But from there, I just had to watch Anakin slice up Shaak Ti, and we were on to the final level of this trilogy. Which, I mean, come on, this level is amazing, especially playing it with a friend, going through all the puzzles and having to 1v1 at the end. I have many fond memories of doing so. But alas, I was playing alone, so after a couple ground pounds, I defeated Anakin and got my next achievement, Revenge of the Sith. Although right then, I noticed there was 2 achievements I could have gotten along the way, so I quickly went back for them. And the first is for breaking Jar Jar 20 times for this hilariously named one. Crowd pleaser, there we go. But then the second achievement was just for disabling a droideka with R2 and I would get this. And so that means it's time to jump into episode 4, which actually has quite a few achievements for us to get. Although before I'd get any of them, I'd have to make my way through the first 2 levels here until we got to the Mos Eisley spaceport. And the first one would be right around the corner from the spawn, because here we have an unlimited spawn point that was perfect for getting 200 perfect lightsaber deflects. And the next one is actually right through this doorway. I just had to grab the speeder from spawn, and once I park it up beside these Jawas, they buy it off me and I get cash in. But from there, we were headed off to rescue the princess in the Death Star, which is obviously filled with a lot of stormtroopers. And after I made my way through taking them all out, I had finally gotten to my total of 300 for this next achievement. Hey, Stormtrooper Slayer. And I have to mention just how different it feels playing the original trilogy compared to the sequels. All of the levels here are way more intricate with all the puzzles they have, and in turn makes them a lot longer to play through, which don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it up until the multiple playthroughs part, especially a certain level. But the final chapter of episode 4 is a very important one, and not only because I'd get some achievements such as this one for destroying 50 TIE fighters, or even for having to complete the whole trench run without firing a single bullet, which would get me this one. Use the Force, Luke. But no, the utmost important part of this was the red brick right in this corner, as this is the much needed ×2 brick, and I also had just enough to buy it. But from there, I was able to blow up the Death Star to get my final achievement of this episode for completing the whole thing. And so with that, I bought my ×2 brick from the store and even grabbed character studs for some more money. And well, I think this first chapter definitely has to be put as worse than the gunship one from episode 2. Just for the fact of these little guys grabbing onto the bomb and pulling it the opposite way. And getting all the mini kits here later is terrible too. But at least the ship flying in chapter 3 is more enjoyable. I just hate trying to get things from along the edge, having to do backflips over and over. Although the last 3 chapters here are great. From running around Dagobah with Yoda on our back to fighting through Darth Vader multiple times. And of course getting the I am your father scene. But then finally, of course, we have Betrayal over Bespin to end it off, which I actually got an achievement in right away for building my 100th item, which just so happened to be this car. But then once we beat the level and hopped in the Millennium Falcon, we saved Luke, and then I would get my next achievement for beating the episode. I also noticed that I missed an achievement for going through chapter 5 and still wearing a helmet at the end of it, because I thought I was supposed to do it in chapter 6, and well, I wasted a lot of time running back for that damn helmet. But when I went back to chapter 5, I also got a different achievement for performing 200 blaster character dodges. And then I just kind of cheesed the helmet one by save exiting as soon as I put it on, because I did not want to waste no more time running back and forth for that thing. But that means it's now time for the final episode, which of course starts off outside Jabba's palace, where I would get 2 achievements. Number 1 was for riding every type of drivable vehicle in this game, with the last one being the Spider. And the second one was for putting on every type of helmet in the game. Yes sir, follower of fashion. Then while I was making my way through the second chapter here, I was supposed to get one for setting off all 3 discos in the game, but it turns out I missed one. So once I completed the level, I went back to find the one I missed, and upon setting it off, I would get this. But that brings us to what I would say is the worst level in the game. Well, I mean, it's fun the first time you do it, but it quickly becomes annoying with how long it takes and how many damn shots these guys can just completely dodge. I mean, I spent over 15 minutes alone just getting through the speeder part here for the first time. Definitely the level I least look forward to playing when I play this game. I mean, the Ewok village level after is fairly long too, but a lot more enjoyable. Although nothing as good as the final 2 levels, with the first one being the fight through the Emperor. It's not only just a super fast level, but it's also very fun. And then for the final one to finish off the story for the first time, we just have to blow up the Death Star to get our amazing escape scene with the explosion chasing us down, and then we get the final story achievement. There it is, Return of the Jedi. And since I had enough studs, I went and got the ×4 brick from episode 5, bringing us to 46.3% in just under 12 hours. I mean, it could be better, but it's not too bad. Although the next plan of action was to take my ×8 multiplier and hit the stud making level so I could purchase a few more handy things such as the mini kit detector and the red brick detector for the next grind. But before I started those, I found a few more easy achievements, with the first one being something everyone's done without even trying, and that's start a bar fight with a total of 50 casualties. However, the next one was a bit trickier since I had to go to a certain part of a level, but it was for blowing up 10 enemies with a thermal detonator just like so. Fire in the hole. And I also grabbed another one for performing 20 unblockable combat attacks, which I might have not known was a thing before since you had to hit hit them so perfectly. But that meant it was now time to get every mini kit and red brick in the game. And I mean, just knowing that it's only the second out of 4 playthroughs kind of makes this part a drag. But since I set myself up with the bricks, I was raking in the studs, and before I even finished the 3rd episode, I already had enough to go and get my ×6 brick, which would really start to set things in motion. Well, that and the help of plenty of other bricks I had turned on, such as bullet deflectors, so I could essentially just run through not paying too much attention and just wouldn't die. And having a ×48 multiplier now was really moving things along. By the time I just started episode 4, I was already at 20 million studs, meaning I could also go and buy the ×10 brick. And I'm kind of an idiot because I completely forgot that the ×8 brick exists, so I thought I was maxed out here at ×480. Although after one quick run of the stud collecting level with that, and I was right back to 20 million. Well, almost. But with my riches, I decided it's finally time to buy every character in the game. And I was super confused to find out I didn't get an achievement, but I quickly remembered I needed to also watch the Indiana Jones trailer and I would unlock him as my last, and actually get the thing I was looking for, Collector. And since I had everyone unlocked now, I was also able to get a series of achievements that are all for using a character to get revenge on someone that had killed them in movies, such as Mace Windu killing the Emperor, or Qui-Gon Jinn taking out Maul. There was also a few random ones like killing Anakin as Vader, but in total there was 9 of those that I had popped. There we go, last one done. And so with those done, we're now headed right back to the mini kit and brick grind. Not only did I have OP bricks, but I also had ghost characters now to make the grind even easier. Well, except for that stupid speeder level. But once I had finished them all off, I would not only get my achievement for all of the bricks, but also for getting every mini kit. Yes, there we go. Oh, I got all the mini kits too. Oh, damn. I thought I had to get the blue mini kits to get that as well. And with that, we were at 78.7% with just past 19 hours of gameplay locked in. Only 2 more story runs to go. And for the next one, we're starting off with the stupid blue mini kits, which sadly not only have a time limit, but they also don't let you use any red bricks whatsoever, which also just resulted in me having to use guide videos a lot of the time because having to redo the whole level just because you missed one is just a kick in the butt. Although I did have my ghost character to make my life easier, of course. But with the worst collectibles completed, I was now at 87.6% and pushing just past 23 hours. So about 4 hours for all of them isn't too terrible, I'd say. But what is terrible is having to do the final super stories on each level. I mean, the first 3 episodes are easy to fly through, with each one only taking about 25 minutes or so. But then the final 3 is where the pain kicks in, as each one of them takes up just near the full hour time. Although I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter if you pass the time, just as long as you at least get the money goal. But I didn't want to take any chances as I couldn't remember for sure. And on the very last one, I had cut it so close that I beat the level with just over 4 seconds to spare. Yes! And so with another 4 hours spent, we were pushing really close to that 30-hour limit I set for myself and didn't even have 90% yet. But that brings us to the 5th and final step to push us through to 100%. And to do so, we have a bunch of miscellaneous things to do, with the first being to go through and do all the bonus levels that are alongside super stories. And they all just consist of easy and fun levels where we have a 5-minute timer to collect 1 million studs, either on foot or for some of them in tiny ships. But either way, they're all very easy considering everything drops a whole bunch of blue and purple studs only. But then next up was bounty hunter missions, consisting of 20 levels where we have to go and hunt down characters in a hot or cold hide and seek type fashion, which I guess I had stored in some forgotten compartment of my brain because I somehow remembered exactly where every single one of them is as soon as I started them up. I mean, some of them are literally right behind you, but once I had all of those completed, that only leaves us with the final bonus room, consisting of 6 more doorways. And here's where I was talking about with the pod race from the very first LEGO Star Wars game. It is definitely significantly harder than the one on here. I mean, the windows on those time limits are kind of insane. Although the second level here I had actually forgotten about. It's a really cool level they cut in which you play through the end of the first movie when Kid Anakin takes a ship and goes and blows up the station. Really cool level in my opinion. Unlike the next one, which is just the original version of Gunship Cavalry, and well, I've already expressed my feelings on this terrible one. This one just makes it even worse. And speaking of worse, the final cut level we have is what I think is an early version of episode 4 chapter 1, and well, it definitely isn't even as close to as good as the other ones, so this is definitely a deserving cut. But for the final 2 to finish off this grind, we have Lego City and New Town, which are essentially both just the same things besides the boat and the the water. But to complete them, I would just have to go around making sure to interact with every single thing and get every single stud there is. And it can for sure get very confusing sometimes. I mean, on the first one, I was walking around aimlessly for 5 minutes trying to find what I missed when all of a sudden the rest of the studs just shot out of the ground. Which is basically how these levels always go. I remember spending upwards of an hour on here when I was younger and never being able to complete it. Almost need a checklist just to do it properly. Even when I was on the second level, the same thing happened to me again. Walking around for 5 minutes finding nothing, then all of a sudden, boom, every last stud I need to complete the 100% out of nowhere. Like, what was that? I just walk over here and random money explodes? That's what happened last time. Let's go though, that's 100% I'm pretty sure. Yes, going for gold. Every single golden brick. 100%. There it is. And so, for the final time, I had gone over my goal by 15 measly minutes. Although we still had 3 more achievements to get, with the first of course being for building the stud fountain to max out our studs at a total of 4 billion. And then the last 2 were both multiplayer ones, with the first one for getting 100 points in arcade mode, which I could easily just do in split screen. But then the final one was for playing online with a friend, which I did not get yet, because I would need to buy a month of gold to do so. And I did not want to waste $20 on a single achievement. But I do have a video in the future that also requires gold, so I'll be getting it then when I do that one. But with that, we have now platinumed 4 of the best Star Wars games there is. And I mean, when we're talking about the best Star Wars games in general, of course we have to mention games such as Knights of the Old Republic. And trust me, if they ever actually completed that remaster, it would be in this video. But sadly, it doesn't even have achievements on Steam for some reason. And as far as platinum trophies go, I feel I picked out the 4 best games that have them. I mean, the complete saga is obviously achievements, but we definitely had to add a Lego game in there. And it is for sure the best one. And I mean, if it would have come out just a year later, this would have been the trophy list anyways. But I would love to hear your opinions in the comments on which games you consider to be the best Star Wars games. And let's all hope they also stop canceling every Star Wars game they say is going to be released. The amount they've done that over the years is wild. But if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure to drop a like down below and also subscribe. You can also become a member to help support the channel even more. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.